Hi there, my name is Matt Pepper. I am a principal sales engineer based here in the UK. I have got far too many years experience in business analysis. I have been a business analyst, I've been a project manager, and I've worked across multiple industries, including telco and insurance and services based like recruitment, as well as working for Accenture. So I've got a very broad understanding of the issues that a lot of companies have. Today, we're going to be talking about the transition between traditional BI, what that really is, and modern analytics. So from a modern analytics perspective, we'll go into that as well and try and see and show what that is and how that can benefit your business. So initially, there is going to be a poll in the chat option in the discussion area. So that poll, I think we're going to have live. Gabby will be posting that in there, so you can have a look at that. But whilst we carry on, I'm going to now skip to the actual presentation. So I'm going to do something very unusual, which is start with a white screen. I'm going to have a little conversation about what's happened to me. I've got two boys. Both of them, in fact, have both got autism and ADHD. It's very exciting. They are very focused and driven and very bright, but from an emotional perspective, they're not so good. And to be honest, they'll probably come in any minute now. They tend to do that quite a lot around this time. So I was trying to explain that they can't always spend their times on their iPad. And it was difficult because I was saying, well, why can't we try something else? Why don't we play something and, show another way? So I thought, let's have some learning, teaching people that you can't always win. So I thought we'd do this, which if you're old enough to know war games with Matthew Broderick, tic-tac-toe or noughts and crosses. So he started, I'll let him start, and here we go, here's the cross. So it got on to this point and he said, if I win this, can I have half an hour on my iPad? And I just went, when it got to this point, I went, yeah, absolutely. If you win this, you can go on your iPad. So he did this. Now, I kind of was a bit shocked, you can't do that. And then kind of stopped and thought, no, he's seen this and he's changed the way he could look at the issue and the problem, and then managed to win, which I had to grudgingly say, well done, but you can't actually change the rules and things. But parenting aside, it made me think that actually sometimes we fit so much into the same confines of what we do, we forget that there could be other solutions, which leads me to this conversation now. Because personally, in my 25 plus years experience of BI or MI or reporting, we've been doing the same thing over and over again. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. It causes loads of problems. So my challenge is for you for this presentation is to think different. Well, because I'm English and I can't stand things, I'm going to change it to think differently because that's English properly. So I challenge you to think differently about this issue with analytics and reporting. So in order to get this, I thought, what can I do? So I've scoured through articles and analyst reviews and CIO.com and CDO.com, and I wanted to look at the wider puzzle. Have a look at exactly what makes people tick at that level and what are the issues in 2021. So from 2021, digital transformation, which is a phrase that I've heard for the last however many years. One of the things that we've seen during COVID and lockdown is true digital transformation, as in you do it or you die. Bad phrasing. Do it or you fail as a company. You lose your company. An example of that is contactless. So contactless or even like the Google Pay or Apple Pay suddenly exploded from just doing your £5 things into, I think they're looking in the UK to increase that to £100 shortly, which is kind of amazing when you think the technology involved. That's an evolution of, from a digital transformation. My baker recently, which I can't believe I haven't a baker, but yes, we go and get some nice bread rolls. He suddenly realized he was getting no customers, made a Facebook company, and then got more work, and he's now got 3 bakeries. He's actually doing amazingly well, and he's delivering to people's doors. because he transformed his business based upon what was going on out there. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So from that perspective, it is survival. It is pure survival now. I do also think from an automation perspective, we've got to make things quicker and more efficient. And that is part of that digital transformation. If people are going to say, can I just export this to Excel and manually manipulate it for month end? It's not really going to help people going forwards. So part and parcel of that is integrating business silos. From a CIO and CDO perspective, they want to make sure that people are talking the same language and making sure that the data's there. And whilst having different tool sets isn't the problem, it's when you get into the meeting rooms and then have people arguing about the same number and who's right. And I have this from experience being in a sales environment when I was at a telecoms in the UK, and people were literally saying, well, my number's bigger and my boss is bigger than your boss. It's not going to help anyone, is it? It's not going to help the company. So therefore, what I did was I looked at trying to get the right numbers, and basically both of them were right. They were just different parts of a sales process. So what we had to do is come up with a singular number that everyone could talk, and that is ensuring, and that kind of a little snippet of real life, that is what we have to do for the enterprise. And Stephen Henson Tyers in particular explained that very well, and I thought that was a really good way of seeing a true enterprise doing it in a big world. That also means that you have to have a level of consistency and a level of governance. Consistency on the delivery, on where the numbers are going to come, and also if you change it, where does it get changed, who can change it, who owns that definition. So, stuff that's been around for a long time, but in order to get this true progression, this is what people need to do. Analytics as well is not just about reporting anymore. I think there's a huge a focus on companies using the data they've got to create new products and new assets, either internally or externally to their customer base. We see a lot of people now allowing people accessing their own billing or suggesting other products. And that's, once again, underneath the CIO and CDO. So they're not just delivering reporting anymore. It's about producing more products. And obviously underneath all of that is the future-proofing of that. Now, cloud is a massive thing. Excuse me while a helicopter goes over my head. Future-proofing, there's a cybersecurity, so working from home. We're out all now, probably all sitting at home on an external network. So your router, how secure is it compared to an enterprise router? Downloading personal information of your customers is possibly not the best and most secure thing, and can cause a massive headache unless everyone is locked down in the same way. So that's something that people obviously are concerned about, as well as obviously the cloud. Creating that true agility. So if you're going to do something, fail and fail fast. That's one of the mantras of cloud. You see how many things that really work, then drop things that don't work and focus on the things that do. So that's kind of from a bigger picture perspective. And like I say, this is from articles that I've read in preparation. So CIO.com, Gartner, Forrester's, and a few other areas. But this is a kind of a, I'm sure there's many others, but from an analytics perspective, this is what the CIO and CDO are really focusing on at the moment. So first of all, I haven't actually explained what traditional BI is and what modern analytics is. So traditional BI, and I do remember this, is when somebody made a request and they would go to IT and then they'd get their own personal analyst who would do a custom piece of coding, and then they'd dump it into either a CSV file or something like Crystal reports, and you'd have a little bit of manipulation, but ultimately that was it. It was a kind of one thing done, and then you might ask it again for the next month. And that kind of was the traditional style of reporting a long time ago. Now I'm going to call it DIY BI. I think this is where most customers are now, or most companies are. And that's not what people think is self-service. It's actually pushing the responsibilities to the end users to do it themselves. So that's not self-service, that's pushing things. So that what we're now getting is the IT departments or specialist analyst departments in the companies doing massive queries, creating massive views and tables, and then getting people to essentially pivot the data to death. Now, whether or not that's a sort of Excel or any other tool, it doesn't matter. It's the process. That's the thing that is causing it. And I think there's a lot of issues in there. And ultimately, it's bad definitions, bad data, because let's assume we've all got perfectly clean data. Even an analytics company, we've got some dodgy data, I can tell you. So from that, then IT are asked to bring in governance afterwards. So after the fact, then you have to go and try and figure out who's right, who's got the best definition and what the differences are. And then that tends to be a separate team. It causes problems. The wonderful world of modern analytics, which is what everyone is aspiring towards, is the fact that the data governance is part of the initial design. Say from Sainsbury's, being a UK customer, I know them a bit better. They're using Elation for that kind of definitions and piece as well, and obviously linking into MicroStrategy. But what the modern analytics part means is that the data and the definitions are packaged before, not part of the query, but those things are already set up as independent objects. And then when people are doing their queries, they don't have to define revenue or anything else. It doesn't mean that you can't use other definitions. It's just those centralized, clear, data-governed definitions are there as the basis of what all of the key reports are. Then whatever tool you end up using, you have the flexibility to do your ad hoc calculations or drills or bringing in other data sources that may not be part of that. If you've got those pieces together, you can then start thinking, yeah, I can actually use this, reuse this, and everyone in the enterprise can actually benefit from it. So we're saying that the DIY BI is great, but it has got limitations. I think everyone's now realized that we don't want the traditional BI, and everyone's trying to aspire to a level of modern analytics. And it's not just me saying this. So once again, I have been doing my research. So the BARC, so people in Europe know this a bit better than in the US. BARC is fantastic, very, very clear on the breadth of capabilities within the analytics world. And as you can see from this is in their BI trending. There are key things with self-service analytics, data discovery, but very, very closely you can see that master data management, data quality, the data governance, all of those things are as of the same, similar or the same importance. And I think that's absolutely critical. So it's not just having the ability to access the data, but accessing the good definitions. That's what I think is a really good thing. So the BARC BI Analytics Trend Monitor came out a month or so ago. It's well worth having a read of. I also read a few years ago, and there was an article that came out recently on a blog on Forrester's, which is something called the BI Fabric. So the BI Fabric is what they think is like a treasure map to creating modern analytics. So these are the key areas. So having a common BI portal, so that is whatever it may be. I think SharePoint is being used quite a lot as from a default perspective, but ultimately what you want to be able to do is look for things that have access to data. So I know that's one of those areas, a central place, so people don't have to go into 50 different tools. So a portal. Having a common data catalog. So once again, yes, we're talking about some tools out there. We have partnered with many of those tools, but having that single place to catalog that information is absolutely critical. So therefore, regardless of tools, you've got some consistency. This one I was a bit surprised at because the BI as a semantic layer, having a semantic layer, which I think a lot of people now are suddenly realizing is important, but allowing other tools to share that. I must admit, when we came out with our federated play, I thought it was a bit of a suicide mission because basically we're allowing everyone to use our access. really, really good. It's resonated, and people are beginning to understand what we bring to the table. It's not just about a pretty dashboard. Those are important, don't get me wrong, but it's about that consistency and making sure that whatever tool people have, you've got that consistency and allowing people to have those definitions. Platform to platform connectors as well. So once again, I think we've already done that as part of a federated. So I thought that was a fantastic piece. The one thing in the Forester one that I don't necessarily agree with is this bit here, which I just don't see vendors wanting to play nicely with each other by sharing metadata, for one. But also the fact that all the tools are so different that a definition of what a metadata is not going to be possible to translate from one tool to another. So from an aspiration perspective, that's the only one I can see that I can't see actually happening, but the rest of it I think is really good. So it shows that our vision of what intelligence everywhere, I think, is actually coming to chime with a wider audience. The fact that you can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting something, you can't have a faster spreadsheet. It's not going to actually improve the way. You need to think differently about what you're doing. And that is what we are talking about with intelligence everywhere. It's not just about dashboards. It's about providing information to the right person at the right time in the right format. But how does that help all of the people? Because you just saw a dashboard and a mobile phone. That's only really ticking one use case out in the enterprise, and those dashboard users and creators. I have broken down roughly into the people that use analytics, which we have on the far left, the data scientists. They will never ever want to use MicroStrategy or any other reporting tool. They will want to use Python or Jupyter or R or whatever programmatic tool to do their analysis. SAS was the king at the time, but I think world has moved on lots, but SAS is still being used very heavily as well. So that's on that left-hand side. Then the top, you've got your data analyst and your business analysts. Those are people that want to use dashboards, build dashboards, and do crazy stuff with dashboards and really push that boundary. On the far right, by far the biggest user group, and those are consumers. And actually, they don't want to touch much. In fact, a lot of them have got what they call dashboard fatigue. They just don't want to, no, do I have to stop now? Do I have to look at this? Oh, I just want the answers and get on with my job. And right down at the bottom is probably a lot of you guys, the data engineers, making sure that the data is there, that it's clean, it's delivered on time, and you want to make sure that everyone is being serviced. Because remember, everyone, BI is a service. So I've split it and changed it roughly into these groups. I want mine, as in I want my own tool. I want to do as much or more than I can possibly do. I want less. I don't actually want to do things in dashboards. I don't want to have to learn a new tool. Just give me the answer. And I need governance. I need the governance in order to make my life easier. So how does that translate into MicroStrategy? So from a MicroStrategy perspective, you've got data all over the place. So I'd love to see a place where everything's in one data warehouse, but there's always, whether you guys know it or not, and I know you do, data is everywhere. So therefore, it's about stringing that data sensibly and cohesively together. You've got your users over the top, and then in the middle, the MicroStrategy bit, that reusable objects, the semantic graph, enables you to have those clearly defined objects and then sharing it with your standard reporters, with your standard dashboard consumers, but also by sharing it through our federated option, either through the connectors that we've got for Python, R, Jupyter, or through our other connectors for Power BI, Tableau, Click, and Excel. We think we've got a pretty good tool with Dossier and Library, but we're not limiting you, the end users, to how to use the tool. And with those external SDKs and connectors, you can build whatever you want. So if HyperIntelligence, you want to be able to pop up something so people don't have to stop what they're doing, That's amazing. You can embed stuff into a portal. So going back to that BI fabric, if you want to have a portal and then just embed something securely into a portal, you don't even have to have a hyperlink. You can actually embed it right in there. As well as some of the voice and visual stuff, which is on from the cutting edge perspective. We do have voice things. I can't say she who must not be named, which is there because it's right in front of me and it sets everything off in the house. But that there, those are your users, and that's roughly how it maps. Another white screen. One of the things that I think is often misunderstood about MicroStrategy is they think it's just this. Now, this is very traditional BI. You've got your system of record, you've got your certified governance, and then you've got your dashboard, all rubber stamped. And that is what Business Objects, Cognos, and all the other tools used to do, and is still very powerful and very useful, but it's slow to change. It's hard to build, and the business moves on too fast and they want to do more. They want more flexibility. So then you've got the other side where you have ad hoc reporting and the more data science part of the things, and just building stuff from an ad hoc, more business level. Now, it appears you need to have two separate tools to do these, but actually you can do both within MicroStrategy using our semantic graph. You can connect two tables. You can bring data through from R or Python or Jupyter or any other tool, and then push it into a data set for allowing people to use. But the key thing is that you're missing all the security and governance on the left-hand side, unless you map it. So you can actually map an attribute or a metric on the fly within the MTDI bit, the multi-table data import. You can map a field to something from the left, so time or department. And when you do that, the security flows from the red into the blue to make a, I don't know what red, blue, green, a dashboard which inherits all of that those properties. So if you do a bit of data science and you want to link it to your sales team and then push it out onto mobile, all the security and governance is inherited from the left-hand side onto the right-hand side. So therefore you're creating something which is greater than the sum of the two parts. It's something MicroStrategy has done for a long time. I don't think a lot of people realize. You can start over here, and even if you've got time and region as part of your semantic graph and that's it, you can apply governance to ad hoc reporting. It's really powerful, and I recommend it, and talk to your account team if you want to know more on that. So MicroStrategy builds intelligent everywhere by three key areas. You might have heard these things before, but modern, open, and enterprise. So the modern experiences, we have got dossier, hyperintelligence, and mobility, which I'm sure you all know about. The open part is what I've focused on a bit here, which is the comprehensive APIs, the federated analytics, as well as the Hyper SDK. And underneath it, underpinning it all, is that enterprise side of things, the semantic graph in particular, but the integration between all of those things, because we're an independent, we have to play nicely with everything. Going back to my issues with the that CDO and CIO need to deal with, what we're looking at here is roughly how things can be done. So from a digital transformation, we have got library, we have got a portal. So if you don't want to start from scratch, you can start there. In fact, you could do the embedded stuff as well, so you can actually push into something else if you wanted. Integrating, federated. The business and innovation partner, definitely from a hyper perspective and push and embedding stuff, but also the embedded stuff, I must admit, I love it. It's really interesting, it's really exciting. But underneath all of that, obviously, is cloud. I highly recommend, if you don't have a cloud strategy, to actually continually focus on this. We have got some really powerful things. Everyone that's worked or migrated from an on-premise into MicroStrategy Cloud has seen massive benefits from experience from some of the customers I've worked with. It just removes the pain. And for upgrading, for example, we had a customer beginning of the year, they were on 2019 on cloud. They decided to jump straight to 2021. That was the vanilla in January or February. Sorry, we decided to do it in January. They did it in February because it took so little time to effort to change. And they've actually moved to update 2. Once again, a light touch, really didn't take that much time to test it, but that was ultimately the longest part. The actual upgrade piece was really easy, and it was someone else's, as in MicroStrategy's, issue to deal with, not yours. So cloud gives you that flexibility and also the scalability. So if suddenly you get another huge raft of customers or of users or data, you can get that and scale it up, and it doesn't take months to actually procure that data, the new environment. You can do that overnight. So once you've updated your environment, this is something that I highly, highly recommend and nag all of my existing customers. If your your output looks like this, you are seriously undermining your delivery to your users. Grids have their place, and grids are really popular and really powerful. Report services documents, RSDs, once again, have their place. But if what we get a lot of the time is people saying, oh, this tool can do this, why can't you do this? Or I want it responsive and do it like this. You can do this. Review this stuff, look at this, and look at the functionality and the flexibility that you're giving. Revisit your documents, which is, I think, the next presentation from James. Revisit it, look at what the capabilities are, and then see what are ready to migrate, and then really reskin and just review those things. It's really powerful, and it makes a big difference to your end users. They want to start using it. So there's the dossier. I've already mentioned library. At the moment, a portal. We're looking at bringing in more capabilities within library itself, whether that means external tools or PDFs or whatever. If that's important to you, let us know. This is still a journey when it comes to library, because we are trying to build what's important for you, the customers. I think I've just mentioned dossiers, so have a look at that. From an embedded perspective, it's actually really easy. I'm not a programmer by nature. I have shamelessly stolen a website from who knows JavaScript, and you can embed your own dossiers with about 3 or 4 lines of code. It's not difficult to do, and you can then rebuild stuff however you want it. We have a customer that does this for the new product launches. They've got multiple projects, but what they've done is used library and the embedded capabilities to actually have all of the key dossiers embedded into one web page. So therefore, people just have that one web page securely to get it logged in, and they don't need to go into all of these different dossiers. They have a one page with all the key information. Really easy to do, and once again, the security is all done. You've probably all heard about hyperintelligence, so I won't labor the point on this, but the key thing for me that came out in 2021 is the SDK. That means you don't have to deploy the plugin. If you've got access to a web page like SharePoint, or earlier I was talking about another website, if you've got access to inject a few lines of JavaScript into that page, you can do this and then enable the pop-up cards themselves. I know large enterprises have struggled with a Chrome plugin, and that's one of the things you can do here. You can actually embed that information quite easily. And in fact, there's the lines of code. I think I've already said this as well, but I've left this in from the slide deck for you so you can see it for real. From a data scientist perspective, probably one of the biggest issues that people have is getting clean data. In fact, a lot of the time, anyone with the word analyst in their job titles seems to spend 80–90% of their time cleaning data, and that was me. You can allow data scientists programmatically to pull data out of MicroStrategy, clean governed data, bring in another data source within Python, doing the magical data science, which I know nothing about, and then pushing the results back into MicroStrategy to then be used by whomever you choose. So the federated piece is about getting data out of or into MicroStrategy, linking to your governed data, and then sharing to a wider audience. That to me is absolutely mind-blowing. That is exactly what I was looking for when I started looking for a huge enterprise reporting tool, and led me down the dark path now and joined the dark side as a vendor. That federated piece, I think, is exactly what you need to start investigating. And how do you start investigating? Well, we've got some resources for you. So there are, first of all, we've got our services. Talk to your account team about your services and the piece that they can help you with. So some of those services you get as part of your maintenance. So it's not just about us selling bums on seats. Our education stuff, I think, is really good now. You can do a lot of it remotely. And as we did last year, we gave all the education away for free for a few months whilst lockdown was out. And I must admit, our poor education team were absolutely run off their feet by people getting that. Look at the education stuff. It really is important. Our community site, if you're not part of it already, please join it. It becomes live and breathing and help each other, and we obviously contribute to that. It's a great place. And more importantly, talk to your account team. That's the first port of call for any of these things. Please do talk to your account team, and that will we show any of these things, and they're happy to do so. Okay, right at the end, I think we've got a final poll, and then it's open for questions.
Okay, so we've got 33% of responses saying improving customer experience and digital experience. Another 33% about streamlining operations and upgrading tech stack. And the final 33% full migration to cloud. So they're equally, actually it's changed to speak. We've got more answers coming in. We've now changed 50% of talking about improving customer experience and digital experience.
Right, okay, and I can just see some questions.
The top answer, and followed by 38% streamlining operations and upgrading the tech stack, and the final % upgrade to cloud.
Sure, and I've got two questions, so I'll fire away straight away. So the cloud hybrid approach works. So there's obviously lots of things in there. So first and foremost, cloud hybrid, I will start first of all, if you want to have a cloud environment where your data is and cloud environment where MicroStrategy is, that works fine. They don't have to be the same vendor, so they don't both have to be Azure or AWS. You can have either or. It's a service. So the key area that we provide is a service to you, much like Salesforce. So you can have them in the same one. That's your choice at part of it. So that's the one bit. On-premise, off-premise, once again, as a hybrid approach. Ultimately, yes, you can just set up either a direct connect or a VPN to your data, wherever that may be, and then that will connect to MicroStrategy in the cloud. So that's how you do it. If you want to keep some on-premise side of things from a MicroStrategy perspective, that's a separate situation. You can have that, but that is essentially a separate environment, and there may be separate licensing accordingly based upon whatever you have right now. So ultimately, yeah, you can have, much like Sainsbury's do, they have Snowflake in the background, so therefore a cloud data warehouse. I'm pretty sure they've got some on-premise stuff as well, and you can have, even in the same query and the same dashboard, data from cloud and on-premise in MicroStrategy Cloud, and that's how it's set up. Okay, so that's the cloud hybrid. The RStudio integration. So there is something on GitHub, which is called, I think it's GitHub/MicroStrategy. There's lots and lots of code snippets within there, so you can create your own connectors. And it's called Mysterio, MicroStrategy input output, but marketing have called it Mysterio. Specifically for R, there is a plugin which is a licensed product, but you can have a plugin within RStudio, press on it, and then essentially what you do is connect to your library APIs. That key bit is then you can connect and then essentially pull data from MicroStrategy with obviously the right credentials into R and do your calculations. Thank you, Tolly, for helping answer stuff here as well. See. So knowledge management is an important component of intelligent enterprise. Is there an opportunity to embed knowledge graphs within the semantic layer to provide richer insight? I don't know enough about knowledge graphs personally to answer that. To be honest, from a key perspective, oh, and it's Cora as well. Oh, thanks, Cora. Ultimately, yes, we try to keep things as open as possible. So yeah, we can take that offline and I can investigate a little bit more about what that means and how do you link with MicroStrategy. Right, okay, so what do you see as the biggest challenges, threat from other BI companies to MicroStrategy? Oh, that's a big question. I think there's a lot of focus on shiny things that have not yet proven their worth. So augmented seems to be a buzz phrase at the moment. Things that tell you stuff. There's as in, the whole, oh, did you know this? And ThoughtSpot, for example, had a massive ascendancy as kind of dropped down a bit. It's still a very good product, but it relies on clean data. What we tend to find from a MicroStrategy perspective is that people focus on one key use case. What I've tried to explain in my presentation here is that it's about the wider enterprise. There are always going to be tools like data science tools, as an example, that can do stuff that MicroStrategy could do a bit of. But what we think as a company is that all of these tools here don't do what an enterprise should do. And Gartner have come out recently and said we are #1 in enterprise BI or enterprise analytics. So that to me is the key thing. We are always in someone else's domain. So we would go into a department and someone would go, can you make this Power BI dashboard? And there'll be some piece of functionality within that dashboard that MicroStrategy may not do as well. That's the biggest problem because people are looking at one specific thing, not about the wider enterprise. Hence why I focused on the CIO and CDO as well. We're trying not to compete dashboard against dashboard because it's a beauty parade and ultimately you will pick whatever tool is appropriate. That's my personal view anyway. I think that the key thing is that people are not looking at the wider aspect of what analytics means. Right, okay. Skimming through here. Dossiers still don't have all the functionality offered by Enterprise, and Enterprise isn't responsive. What would you suggest for those use cases? Right, okay. So Enterprise, as in report services documents. Stay tuned, I think is the right answer. In 2021, we've seen a huge move of all of the functionality from report services documents into Dossier. The two key things that come up a lot at the moment are transactions and info windows. Both of those of some kind. Hold out for December when 2022 is announced, he says smilingly. But ultimately, from a longer term objective, MicroStrategy wants to provide the same functionality in an RSD in a dossier library context. In fact, not just the same, better. That's what we're trying to do. So there is a migration to enable you to add those pieces of functionality. So that is what I would, those things are coming. If you can log an enhancement request to focus on whatever piece that you want, that is where you want to look at. So to be honest, dossiers, I would start building with those things now. In fact, the next presentation goes into why dossiers is just easier to build for one. The functionality is coming. So I can't tell you specifics, but that's part of our modern focus. We are trying to provide all of that functionality, but in a modern interface. Right, okay. Is there a roadmap to include time series visualization in MicroStrategy? Yes, there is a new one already. It's just come out. Time series. So I think what they've done is they've used Bitcoin, obviously, information to do that. So it looks more like a candlestick chart, but the time series one with different like months, quarters, years, and basically what the old MicroStrategy mobile app did, that is either out or is very soon to come out. So that's there.